Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio. I am your host, Kelly Meehan, a citizen of the universe and a passage keeper and mentor for our new Earth children. I believe we are entering into a new psychic structure of our reality, and it is meant to embody deeper trust and ways into solid self-love and fearless integrity. Our new world energy of spirit babies needs us to consciously create within conception, trust pregnancy, and have freedom to birth and parent from innate wisdom. This is Spirit Baby Radio. Welcome to episode 234, January 2026, Reclaiming Your Divine Design, Homebirth, Homeschooling, and Health Sovereignty. Do you know how to trust under societal pressures and beliefs? How can you prepare and open up to your fertility health into birthing? What fears or distractions keep you closed down? How can you fully reclaim your way forward? I have a special guest here, Kristen. She's here. Hello.
Hi.
And I'm going to read her beautiful bio in just a moment, but I always like to go into how we connected. And I connected with someone else in the podcast space here, Nicole, and I feel like her holistic education, fertility support. And she's like Reclaiming Birth Conference. She was a part of it. You have to know these people. I was like, I do? Okay, let's do this. I want to know. And we finally making it happen after many messages back and forth. And I'm excited to have you here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I think timing is always perfect. It's just
There you
trusting.
go. So let me share more about who you are. Tristan Nagel is a founder of the Reclaiming Birth Conference, a former NICU nurse who once thought home birth should be illegal, turned faith-led movement creator. Kristen has spent over a decade walking out a return to God's design through home birth, homeschooling, health sovereignty, and building life outside of conventional systems. Her work centers on helping women move from fear and outsourcing to trust, embodiment, and rooted leadership in their homes. Through birth, faith, and lived experience, Kristen invites families to remember what was always theirs and to reclaim life as it was meant to be lived. I'm all like, sign me up. Something you say here, I love this outsourcing to trust. And I want to, you know what I'm going to say? I want to hear about the NICU nurse experience, and I want to hear what the home birth and what has changed. Like, where was this change for you? Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. It was quite a journey, as I'm sure most of us go on, right? So I was a neonatal intensive care nurse for 14 years. I was an indoctrinated nurse. I saw the worst of the worst. That environment is quite toxic. You're kind of in there, conditioned in the conversations, midwives are terrible. They don't know what they're doing. Doulas, what a joke, like home births, like the worst case happens, and it creates this, toxic environment of thank goodness for the medical system that we are here to save everyone and save these babies. And that was the conditioning that I was a part of for a long time. And it didn't shift overnight, but it's interesting how we all open a different door and then that leads to the next, to the next, to the next. And for me, it was 2015 when my oldest son was born. And I look now at it as being like divine intervention, but it kept being pressed on my heart. What are you going to feed your baby? What are his first foods going to be? And I was like, of course I know what to feed my baby. I'm a pediatric nurse. I studied this in school. I know what his first foods should be. And, but it kept, pressing down. People were in my space talking about food differently. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll look into it. So with new baby in my arms, I turned on my first documentary and I got hooked. I got hooked on everything about food, just realizing like we actually don't know anything. We're not taught properly about what this is. We're taught to feed our babies fortified rice cereal. Why would we fortify with iron when they can eat the real thing, bone marrow and liver and all these, delicious, real nourishing foods? And why would we give them rice when it's, empty nutrients when they can't even digest grains until 16 months? So it was like all these unravelings and getting back to traditional foods of how to actually nourish our babies. And I became obsessed. I enrolled at the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition in 2016 and became a holistic nutritionist. And that's really when all the light bulb moments went off for me. It was, wow, health is so simple. Why didn't I learn this in my 4 years of nursing school? Why wasn't I taught how to care for our children? Why didn't we learn all these things? And it was, oh, because they don't want us to know. We're easier to be controlled when we're victims, when we're in the system, when we're in, their walls where they're telling us what to do. They don't want us to be healthy and sovereign. And so my second son was born 2018, and each of my children were different layers of unlearning, and everything kept getting pulled
Mm-hmm.
back. And he taught me how to trust the body. And this was the whole idea of coming back to our perfect divine design, that we don't need anything outsourced from man, any injections. We don't need anything outside of our perfect creation and what we are able to nourish with our own bodies. And so he had absolutely zero injections. And I remember watching him grow and just being, what a lie. What a lie parents have been told, that they need something put into their perfect baby's body so they can survive and be healthy. Like, what an odd concept. And so I started speaking out about that in 2018. I got in trouble with my College of Nurses then, for bringing awareness to this
Yeah.
conversation. It goes deeper, but the whole kind of longer story from that was 2020 came. I could not stay silent. I spoke out about everything that was happening, from the lockdowns, the masking, all the isolation, and ended up losing my job, losing my license. And then I became pregnant with baby girl after 2 losses. I didn't know if I would be pregnant again, because both my boys were born in hospital with an epidural. Again, home birth I thought should be illegal. Birth is dangerous. You want to be in the hospital. And when the next layer was peeled back, and I was finally open to hearing about undisturbed physiological birth, I remember feeling robbed of an experience I didn't know existed. And I didn't know if I was going to ever be able to fully experience what my body was capable of. But we were blessed with our third baby, and she was born at home, out of system, with a traditional birth companion, Billy Harrigan and Christina Regato at my side. No midwives, because they're too regulated in Canada now. And
Wow.
it was the most beautiful, hardest thing that I've ever experienced. And that was the full coming back to the surrender, to the trust, to everything full circle in that moment. And that was the start of Reclaiming Birth Conference, because I thought
Wow.
everybody needs to know this is available to them. And
And what a
here we
beautiful
are.
story you've just created here of like reclaiming, because that feels that even that energy alone to me, it feels like there's purpose because moms are so hard on themselves. Like, oh, I fucked up. I didn't do it right. And it's like, but now you can step into the reclaiming of it and move forward, right? I think that's the most important part because I feel like every time we have a child, like I know with my firstborn, I often joke and say he broke my second chakra wide open. And it literally created spirit baby mediumship like reality. Like this work was created based on my experience with him. And I've always had those meta sensibilities, but I didn't know where it was being formed into. And so then, but then my second was a whole other thing too, is like I actually had a home birth transfer with the first one, and I went into that system, and it's a podcast of its own. It was not good. And the things someone just a local in town asked me this, my new friend, and she was like, tell me the story. I was like, this is a long story. And she was like, I don't even know how you got away with what I did. I was literally prepped for a cesarean and said no, and I didn't. Like, how do you get away with that? Yeah. So it's a very interesting story going into like a gap between my younger one, where I felt like I was doing the work very differently. And like you said, it calls you into where you're going. And I just remember it's home birth, untouched, undisturbed, not like, none of my kids have been poked or injected with anything. Like I didn't do anything with them. And with the second, though, his whole system is very different. Children, all right, here's what everybody has been asking me. Children that are born at home are different energetically. They are different, especially someone's like, well, what about if you add that layer of like, injections and stuff? It really depends on the kid. Because someone was like, oh, maybe you can see that. I go, no, you see the birth story more than anything. You see the birth story. And then some of us have to work really hard to clear that birth story, and some just don't have to. And they're just there. And my hope, and maybe it's like there's an alignment with your reality, is that we do want our children to know, and the mothers and fathers, that they're strong enough that the babies are born perfectly and they're just here. And you're right. I want to hear more. I mean, that's got to be really intense. I've heard women go from like VBAC to like free birth. I actually just had someone on the podcast you may be curious about back in, I think it was November 2025. It's actually called Stillbirth to Free Birth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she's massive opening one after another. And in her story is like, tragic, terrible. And then something her instincts told her just to birth, regardless, like in that moment and meet her daughter. And it was like, how do we question that? It's like, and I want to hear what your feelings are. And how are we putting the trust back into families? Like, what does that vision look like to you? Like, because we say it, but then when someone's really fearful or they're so used to the system, how do you deprogram that? What is your experience?
Oh gosh, yeah, it's a lot, and mine was unraveling over several years. And we
Yeah.
noticed that with families of, you can't choose one thing based on fear, meaning during 2020 there was so much going on with birth, like told to birth with a mask on, their partner wasn't allowed in the room with them, c-sections that were scheduled, the father wasn't allowed in the room, and there was just so much awfulness going on at that time, and we witnessed horror stories in the NICU, and so people were looking for an alternative. But this is where it gets interesting. You can't run away from something out of fear into the next because you fear it less, if that
Mm,
makes sense, because your body will never lie where your truth is, where your energy is, and what actually you believe. Do you believe birth is beautiful and you can trust it and you can surrender to it? Or do you
mm,
believe that there's, things that can go wrong and you're not sure? And are you safe? Do you need to go somewhere else? So we've experienced this as well, where people say one thing but their body knows the truth, if this kind of makes sense. So it's learned, trusting. So little bit by little, even when you walk through a sickness with your child for the first time, right, with a fever, it's like, okay, it's scary, but when you both come out of that, you realize how amazing the bodies are and that they can heal and you can heal together. So the next time it happens, you're like, okay, you trust the process,
yes.
hold it more. So trust is earned, and it's really
Mm,
hard to just move from one area to the next. Like mine was, a very slow
yeah.
progression. But if you're ready to do the deep work, you have to really look inside. It's not enough of like, okay, you want birth to look this way. Like, what are you surrendering to? What are you ready to, experience? What are you ready to let go of? What are you ready to own? And it's coming into the taking responsibility as well of that decision and owning it. So again, in the we talked about no longer outsourcing trust. The
Yeah.
trust has to come back into yourself. Do you trust your body? Do you trust God? Do you trust how we're designed? Do you trust your baby? Like, and then really being honest with yourself in those conversations. Mhm.
I love how you said that. You made me think about when I went from that experience with my son, and it was so intense. And it was like, I remember, and this I pride myself on, I remember my intuition was like this little tiny light that said, I don't know what's happening around you. They want to do all these things. It's not real emergency. And again, there's a lot to the backstory. And it was with a midwife that maybe shouldn't have been there, the way it all, yeah. So then I was like, okay. And then I just kept hearing like that inner voice, like, don't open your eyes, like, stay connected. And it saved me and it taught me something so valuable. It made me realize into the chaos and stress and, ambulance lights, like all that stuff didn't matter because that little we can call it the universal heart God, it was just like that little tiny, it was like a speck because I was like feeling that other stuff, and I trusted that, and it literally opened up my reality to so many things. I was like, well, I'm just going to keep trusting myself even if I'm fearful on the outside. That doesn't matter. And I think that's what misses when you said that. I was like, yeah. And then it was like, do you want to, what are you going to do with your baby? Well, baby well visits and stuff. And I'm like, I ain't doing any of that. So I'm like, my baby's
Yeah.
okay. What's the problem? I never understood that, but you feel that pressure or,
Yeah.
and I just always thought, well, here's my son. And we just had this really intense experience. And I just want to take him home, nurse him, and just leave me alone. And I realized it was a lot of healing of old storylines too, of like how I was born. Nobody talks about how we were born, right? Can really impact even our own connection to conception and birthing and pregnancy. And so when you say that, yeah, it's not just, I like the way you said it because it's not just like, oh, here it is. Here's the equation. It's like you feel your energy building, 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 and then you're having to do trusting things with yourself, right? It's like you're
Mhm.
having to have a lived life. So when you left nursing, or were you were pushed out, you'd say, right, with nursing, was it 2020 or 2019, did you say?
2020. I was kind of starting to get in trouble. 2018 and 2020 was yeah, it was done.
You're like, especially, it reminds me of when you were talking, you remind me of like Christian Northrup, you know her work,
Oh,
and
yes.
Dr. Stu. Also, I was like, they had that background and, they did things and they evolved and they were like, especially Christian, she was in 2020, it was like she was vilified. And it's interesting to see them now because their energies now and what they share is so profound and people are listening. What do you think is happening now? Now that we're like, my gosh, 2026 from 2020, are people listening? Are moms and dads listening? What do you think?
I think so, but I also think it depends where people are at. I think, I'm still seeing a lot of, people that kind of like came through 2020 with one mindset, that kind of like fight energy, like, no, we're standing our
Yeah.
ground. But then there's still a little bit of victim mentality that I'm witnessing that they don't know how to carry on. It's like, well, this happened to me. Like they still want to kind of go a little bit backwards and just go back to comforts and how things were. And, with that, there's people are listening. But what I'm finding is it's a different group of those that are like, okay, this happened. We experienced this. There's no going back. How do we move forward? What do we need to do to move forward and take back, reclaim our bodies, reclaim our health, reclaim our families. And Dr. Stu has been such a pivotal part of Reclaiming Birth Conference.
Oh, he
He's
has? I
been
love it.
the last 2 years. I believe he's coming back again, and I love his honest transparency of his story because
Yes.
it's very similar to mine. How we both believed we were doing the right thing until we're in these situations, where they start peeling back the layers and showing us different things. Like he ended up, being around some midwives to get paid. He needed money, and little did he know how much he was going to learn and witness, and that just started his whole path forward. And I think it's a kind of powerful when you have people in that space and they're like, when they see that and come out of it and being like, no, there's a
Yes.
better way forward. It leaves a little bit of credibility. So Dr. Stu has, yeah, a lot to share. And so when people hear him, are people listening? I think they
Yeah.
listen a little bit more knowing where he came from and where he's
Yeah,
at.
and he's
And
very honest about the things he fucked up on, to be honest,
yeah,
and the things that
yeah,
he thought. And I think even you were sharing that, and even I think of it, Christian, I'm like, this is a time where it's like, yeah, we did things, and not to feel victimized or like that's what we did, and we're here now. And with Dr. Stu, he was connected to one of my midwives, and I actually saw him. He did, I decided to do one sonogram, and he did it. It was him who did it. I was like, okay, we're going right to the source here, and it was great. And then just to see how he's grown and like where he's come from, and even you. So Reclaiming Birth Conference, where did that like? Were you just like, I'm doing this? Like, where did that come from? Like, how did that get inspired?
yeah, well, it was because of my ignorance, and I did. I thought home birth should be illegal. I thought anyone that chose that were reckless and dangerous and stupid, like putting their baby's life at risk. And why would you do that? We would get transfers into our unit and be like, "See, look at them. They chose that, and now they're here, and look what they did to their baby." Like just such
Mm-hmm.
like toxic conversations. But then we're not able to look at what goes wrong birth. But when things go wrong at home, we blame the decisions, not, like there's such a hypocrisy that drives me crazy. So I think because of my ignorance, I went back and apologized to, the friends that I could. And then it was not being able to experience that myself and thinking, wow, I was like robbed of what my body could do, robbed of feeling like, the fullness of what it means to be woman, of what it means to grow life, bring life into this world. Like that's what we're here to do. And that really this. And I was so blessed to be able to. And I thought, I never want any woman to feel robbed of this experience. I don't want anyone to ever miss out on this. I want everyone to know that this is available to them, that this is here. This is what it can be. This is, how beautiful it can be without the fear, like, to be home, to be with your partner. My kids were there, like my boys. And just to see how simple, I mean, it's hard, all the things, but birth is birth. And I wanted to try to normalize that conversation. So I did. I was like, okay, we just need this information out. I was blessed with a large platform because of my voice throughout, the nonsense years. So I thought, okay, we're just going to rent this center, get some speakers, see what happens. And it was received so well that we're like, okay, we have to keep this going. So we went bigger, brought in more speakers, and we continue to grow and evolve in what this is. And now what we're finding, some things when we put our heart out there, they kind of start leading us instead of us leading the thing when it's
Yeah.
and so we're realizing that yes, it's about birth. We want people to know that about undisturbed physiological birth, about what our bodies are designed to do. But last year we brought the men into the conversation because I always feel they're left
Yeah.
out. And it's like, well, life cannot be created without them. And they're there to raise them and be a part of it. So they need to be a part of these conversations and in the room to realize they're the protectors, the advocates. They hold that space and create that feeling of safety. So the mother can go into that liminality space of like, the in between where she gets out of her head and allows her body to take over. And now it's moving into more of, okay, birth is the foundation, is the essence of growing life, of trusting, of surrendering, of bringing these beautiful beings into the world, of where we're transformed, they're transformed, yes, but how do we continue to raise them in this world? And so now it's kind of coming to this place of birth as being the foundation. And if we can capture that moment, then we can help parents navigate everything else with, the injections or the world or, all these things that are kind of against the family, trying to break apart the family unit. I'm like, okay, if you can do this thing and realize how you can do this together and bring life into the world, you'll be able to navigate more. So we're bringing in more conversations of postpartum, motherhood, even hopefully this year, to register your child or not. So now it's more kind of about how do we reclaim the whole family, starting with birth. Mm-hmm.
I'm all like, sign me up, sign me up. I mean, it's beautiful. It's a huge mission. And I feel like what you're saying to me is like what I would call like new earth energy. Is like, how are we evolving and are we allowed to speak? And I think from, a lot of you have these past experiences that really show you something that then goes, I know when I started studying psychology, is my background, clinical psych, and somatic psychology, which I was very freaking fortunate to study something that wasn't really offered, and pre and perinatal. And I remember like, I don't want to follow the rules and all the things that they want you to do. And I was really like kind of pacing over that. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I was like, well, what if I create my own thing? But I still didn't know what that meant because I was like, I could still do this work, but not in conventional ways. Or I call like some of the work I do unconventional. Like I work with children now on the outside, on the outside to like bring them into their own body's connection and awareness. And something you said too is like, it's to me when you're saying that, it's like we're raising less disconnection and more authentic autonomy of like, who am I? Where is my body? And I do feel like that begins at birth. And then after that, like you talk, and I want to like paint this picture together because I think it's so beautiful. It's like you have this amazing last birthing experience, and you were like, it was, of course, maybe, labor is called labor for a reason, but you did it and you saw your body's innate nature ability. And I remember that having that first experience with transfer and just feeling so like, even though I did get a natural birth in that hospital setting was so traumatic, to be honest. I signed myself out, by the way. Oh, they did not like that. And it's a whole other conversation. But my own, even though I had fear, my inner wisdom said, no, you need to go. This is not right. And I kept following that all along the way. And I questioned things too about the foods and things. My firstborn didn't eat any food until he was like 12 months. He didn't want any food. And everybody's thinking, everyone gives you all their opinions, like, that's great. And he was so deliciously chubby. because he was getting so much milk. And I said, well, actually, babies don't really need food until after a year. And for him, he just did not like it. He had an aversion. So I just waited and then he figured it out. Like, oh my gosh, we're going to let him figure it out, or I'm going to force him to eat rice and bananas. I was like, what's the big deal? I was really tuning into that. And there's so much pressure because of the fear. I'm sure after 2020, there's a whole other layer of a level of fear for people because I see things and I'm like, to me, I don't know. I'm very compassionate to people, but I'm also like, well, I don't know. That doesn't make sense. Why would you inject metals into your baby? Like, I'm sorry. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. But then when you're pregnant, you can't put lavender oil on your hands. Like, I'm so confused. You know what I mean? Like what? Like, wait,
Yes.
lavender oil is bad for you, but metals is okay. I'm like, huh. Like, again, I know people can get very angered and overcharged, but then it's also like, but again, painting this picture of the beauty, like my son was born, we didn't wash him. It was so like he was so present. He's so healthy. And that was a really big thing for me because I grew up sick. So it was like he's healthy. His nervous system is so regulated. He's so present. And the way he sees the world, I'm like, that is just so profound to me. And we get to like, and we get to repair that. If we didn't have that, we do get to repair that. But people, I feel like mothers, fathers, they do need to keep waking up more and go, you know what? Let's question things. I mean, isn't
Mhm.
that the big thing? It's like, let's keep questioning, you know, what do you think about that when someone says, don't touch the lavender, but do the, like, what is that?
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It's like,
Right?
okay,
You're
well,
confused.
don't eat sushi, but
Yeah.
put all the metals in. Don't eat soft cheese, raw eggs, and cold cut meats. Like, but we'll put all this into your body. Like, that's fine. No, it doesn't make any sense. And I think it's so interesting, the programming and brainwashing, because it's like, oh yeah, well, that's for our safety. Like, we need that. That's health. And because I was there. And in that, sorry, so long behind.
Yeah.
It just
It's okay.
distracted me. Yeah, but I believe that, and you can see that it's total brainwashing. That's all it is, conditioning. You
Mm.
hear it over and over and over again. This is safe. This is not. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. And I think we're in this. I call it the conveyor belt of life. Right? You just hop on, and it takes you, and you just keep following along, and just grab whatever is handed to you along the way. And when you try to hop off, like and walk backwards, like that's where you really have to kind of struggle. But it was when I finally was ready to ask questions, because I started to see things, and I wasn't allowed to question that. It's really interesting in
Oh,
the
and
unit.
yes, do tell.
Yeah. So when I was in the unit, I would watch our 23-week prems, right? Super small, fragile, 60 days of life, not even full term yet. They would receive their 2 months shots. And this just standard. They're, by this time, 60 days, they're a little bit bigger, they're getting healthier, getting closer to going home. However, they get these shots and they go backwards, meaning their heart stops beating, they stop breathing on their own, the apneas, the bradyas, the spells, and they need to go back onto invasive breathing support. And then I was like, do you guys see what's happening here? Like, don't you think this is a problem? But it was passed off as a normal side effect. And that's when we did our
Wow.
nursing shift change. Then this is what would happen was we pass it off. Oh, baby had their shots today. Baby had this. Now they're just having a lot of spells like normal. And that's it. And so it was kind of just so bizarre that we would give, medications and other things. And if there was a change in vital signs, we would stop it, like just absolutely stop it right away. When we're giving blood work,
Yeah.
then like when they give them blood, we're sitting at their bedside and we're documenting every 15 minutes to make sure there's no change. If there's a change, then we stop the blood. But go back on invasive breathing support, that's normal.
That's so scary, the things that you've had to witness and you question, but the question isn't taken seriously because it's just what you do. It's like you're following the rules and orders of that system, right? So it's like, oh, this is just what we do. This is who we are, right? And then you're like questioning it, and then they don't like you. They don't want you to
Yeah,
question
not at
it.
all. I
Yeah.
became the
You're
crazy
the
nurse, and
conspiracy
that's when I really,
theorist, maybe even, right? What they say? I don't know.
yeah,
Is that the
exactly.
term they use? I don't know what they, I have a doctor friend who came for a visit where I live in a new like nature area now in this new state. And I didn't want to talk about the pregnancy birth stuff, but I was like, she's an ER doctor and she's living in a big city. And I said, well, what do you think? I can see the energy, the dynamic change of where her energy was. But what I saw, she's very much into following the orders and rules. And she said that pregnancy is risky, but in a
Mhm.
way where she didn't use the word dangerous, but we might as well as add that in there. Do you know what I mean? Like we might as well as add that in. But it was just interesting to see that one form of idea and thought. But then I'm thinking, okay, you are someone that deals with emergencies, but I'm sure it really has good value in certain real emergencies, right? Not like I feel like with pregnancy, I do think there's a lot of fake emergencies in birth, as we see. And I see these women who have had sometimes multiple cesarean births, and they do miss out on what that is not to. But coming back to, I want to know with the Reclaiming Birth conference, like who shows up to that? Who is this for?
Mhm.
Is it in
There's
person? Is it virtual? Like how does that work?
We have virtual tickets, but it is in person. It's so important to get in the room, right? We do so much of this online, connection, which is great. It's amazing that we get to connect all around the world, but it's so important to get in the room. It's always been by families for families. Like it was by our own experiences that we wanted to bring this out into the world, and so we want more families in the room. Last year we did have some more men, some more women in there, but I will. It does seem a lot more people like birth workers, doulas, people in the industry, obviously that love the information, love the knowledge, come in and want to absorb as they should and continue to learn and be connected by others doing the same. But we really do want to open it up to more families because that's where the change takes place,
Ah.
right? It's great that there's all these people wanting to care for birth in a whole sacred way, doing it differently, getting away from the regulations, the medical system, all of it, to honor it, to trust it. But that change doesn't happen if we don't get more families in the room. So this is our hope and desire, is to see that. And we get a lot of people saying, well, I'm not ready to have, children yet. I'm not there yet. Perfect. This is the perfect time for that,
Mm-hmm.
because we talked about at the beginning about like, how do you start taking back the programming and taking back the layers? Well, you have to start somewhere by learning and hearing it, because it takes time. We have been like, this has been ingrained in us over generations, like for a long time. This is one of the longest layers to peel back. So whether you're ready to have a child or not, if you're thinking you ever do want to have a family, get in the room, start learning, start being aware, start knowing what is possible, what is available to you, start taking back, those layers so you're ready. We get a lot of people that come in pregnant, all these things come up. Oh, they wanted a home birth. Now they're not allowed because they've fallen out of, the rules of being allowed to have a home birth. And like, what do we do? And it's like, well, should have attended the conference so you would have known. But now it's choosing, do you continue in the system and knowing, the fight that you went through, or finding another way? But the trust isn't there in their body yet, right? Because the knowledge isn't there. They had a plan and it changed, and now don't know how to pivot. So it's so important to get in the room before you think you need it. Even women that come say
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm out of childbearing years. My children are young. Well, how old are your daughters? Do you know, in school, remember we in health class, like all the BS information we learned in elementary and high school about, our bodies and everything else. Like, get the
That
young
was
women
terrible.
into these groups. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like such nonsense, but get the young
it
women
is.
in the room, like learn this mother-daughter learning. And we've had women in their 60s show up just to support or wanting to know, and they were shocked at the profound healing that they had from their births. They didn't realize how much they're still holding on to what they're experiencing or having in their body, and it just made them realize so much. So we do say it's for everyone, but really we want the families in the room. We want them to
Love
be there
that.
because they're the ones that are going to be making the change moving forward.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I love that. I know because when I think of conferences, I think of all the professionals, to honestly. And maybe that's good that we talked about that because it's like, oh yeah, families. Yeah, and especially men. You're right. It is a very woman-centric, like I feel like a lot of these conferences, a lot of this birth work, and where's the males? Where are the male energies in that space? I'm seeing it more honestly on Instagram. I'm seeing a lot of really amazing males speaking up for the family, speaking up for sovereign body. And I'm like, thank goodness this is finally happening because I was not seeing that for a very long time. And my
Mhm.
podcast is going to have more men that are of that like mind to hear, my husband is, I think he's very open-minded. I hope so. We agree on like a lot of the things we're doing, and we unschool right now our younger one. Our older one we put in this holistic kind of hybrid thing. As a teen is a little different, but my husband, our second born, he got to catch him, and that was really special. And that my and
Amazing.
his older brother saw he saw the last, like they told he was sleeping, but he wanted to be there, and he saw his brother be born. And I thought, I wonder what kind of healing that brings his own birth, which wasn't very positive. I don't think. I mean, it could have been better, in the setting. I feel like the setting, but I know we think about that, and I do know it's formed who they've become in their personalities for sure. But I think also with me coming out of that birth psychology space too, is like I can really see the forms of that younger kind of body and how it's coming in, of course, with the family's belief system, with the energy of the past. But I like you, I want to hear more about even homeschooling. So you go from home
Mhm.
birth to homeschooling. Were your children always homeschooled?
Kind of. I know you just got to see like real life happening behind me
I know,
on
yeah, that's okay. As like
yeah, no,
they're going to be in the background on YouTube, but they're a little blurry, so I think it's fine.
yeah. Um, yeah, we never planned on it, just like most things. I
Yeah,
was very brought up very conventional, and that was the
yeah,
path I was following until, we have these obstacles and things in our life that totally derail us and put us on the path we're meant to be on. So my oldest was at least I was trying to do things a little bit differently. He was enrolled at Waldorf. So he was there for the first 6 months until the world shut down. And we were still paying, but it was very bizarre. Like, but for what? We're not going to keep. I don't know. And I was like, I'm not doing that again. I don't trust the world. I'm not doing that again next year because what if they shut down again? Like, what are we,
yeah.
paying for? And so I was like, okay, you're just going to stay home. And after that, it was like, okay, and I guess we're just going to do this. You're going to stay home. We're going to figure it out. My husband's a high school teacher. He fully
Oh,
believes in
wow. There you go. Yeah.
that says a lot there, that he'd rather have them at home than in the school system. So it's, we call it homeschool, life school, world school, unschool.
Yeah,
It
I
is
love
all
it. It
depending
is
on
world
whatever
school
the
for
kid
you.
feels. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they're in their Spanish classes and learning about different culture and cuisine
Nice.
and everything. So yeah, just I'm hoping, isn't that always the way with like parents? You're just like, I hope we're doing the right thing.
I
Hope,
know. I say that
I
too. When
hope
I
it'll
talk to people that are in public school, private school, homeschool, unschool, I'm like, I don't think parents realize you're always like, is this enough? Is this
yeah.
good? And then when you send them off away, like you don't know what's happening over there. You're like, is it good? Is it enough? Is it okay? I was like, I totally got to experience that because even my older one, he did a Waldorf charter for a few years, and the pandemic shut everything down. And I wasn't teaching my kids about masking or distancing at all. And I was like, uh-oh. Because then they want them to come in and stand in a circle and then be shamed. And I was like, how can you learn with a mask? This is ridiculous. So I
Yeah.
was like, oh, we're not coming back. And I told my husband, we knew this time would come. And my husband's the homeschool dad, actually. We're like the homeschool family. He did all the research, everything, because the state we lived in offered really good money incentives, and we took it
Oh, that's
yeah.
amazing.
But then we moved and the incentives got lost. But it's like whatever. We're still, and I say unschooling now with my younger one because that's since we moved, I feel like that's what we're really doing. We're not following any rigorous like thing. I feel like we're seeing as like, as we go, literally, like what's gonna happen? What does that look like? And I think we need to talk about that as parents, like the homeschooling environment, because I think we're all doing it so different. But I don't know about you. I love being with my children. I have
Absolutely.
moments where it feels like, oh, it's so stressful, or I need to go, kind of take my own break. But I think you get used to it and you see a different social and emotional connection with your
Yes.
child. And I think that's so beautiful. And I think our children in the future, we want them, I think, connected to the family and home. Like you talk about like learning, like I know I just had this discussion with this homeschool moms the other day, like these new moms I met. It's like it came up as a conversation of learning about human sexuality from like your seventh grade male teacher. Like, how is
Yeah.
that like? I'm like terrified the whole time because it's a guy, first of all. Like, I can't
Yes.
even think beyond that. So I learned nothing. And I'm like, where does it? It comes from the parents, I feel like. And I know that some parents are so traumatized and uneasy. I'm like, yeah, but get your shit together, learn about it, go get your therapy. Because I do feel like that begins with the family, like that
Absolutely.
connection and
So true.
having that, not some weird gym teacher teaching you, like,
So
what is this?
uncomfortable. That's so not natural or normal. Like that's just not okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and then you're just thinking the whole time, like, what? Like, and they're teaching you things that are really intense. And, and I remember eighth grade, they teach about like sexual transmitted infections or diseases. And I'm like, I don't even know what sex is at yet, barely at that age. I really don't. And then you're telling me about this infectious thing. Like, oh, I'm not even there. Like I don't even know. Like, it's funny. I remember because I actually remember the sexually transmitted, like the gonorrhea and the herpes. They were like dancing little like cartoons. And I remember that because I thought that's
Yeah.
really interesting. Like, are they
Yeah. Oh my
fun?
God.
I don't know. Are they fun? Like, or
And
they just, that's their message back in like, this is 1989 because I'm like really old. 1989, I think it was. Yeah. And it was like, okay, infections dancing like cartoon characters. And I'm like, that's really what we're doing.
oh my
Like,
gosh. So bizarre.
but
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, yeah. But so you go from, your whole reclaiming birth vision is here, you're homeschooling, and I love this kind of how do you say it, the sovereign self, coming back to health. And it sounds like obviously you were in the health field, so that was a big, kind of shifting reality for you. Do you still feel like, do people still argue you, or what is that community like now? Do people want to challenge you, or do they? I feel like there's more respect now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think because I was such a very vocal voice, I kind of like just weeded through all of that. So, and you find your people and that's what it is. So, I don't have as many arguments anymore, but I also am at this place where um, I sometimes keep a little bit more quiet depending where I am. I offer a little bit, and now I like a little bit. Before it was like an all or nothing, and putting up this wall. And I'm trying to like not be so like hard anymore because there are a lot more commonalities with people than we realize. And, like, well, maybe I can like slip a little bit of truth or slip a little bit of truth, and or from there, but just trying to kind of go at it with more ease than where I kind of like bulldoze through it in the last a few years. But I feel people are kind of more ready to have conversations, looking for different ways to do things, just seeing, like just all the pharmaceutical pushes, like all these things on our kids and all the injections and all the thoughts or all the shots, like all the things. I think parents are kind of getting overwhelmed. Like enough is enough. Like what are the options here? What can we do? Mm-hmm.
I feel like 2020 opened us up for something that we can alchemize into something of great value, right? Because
Absolutely.
before that, I don't know why people say they want to go back because I actually feel like for
I
me
definitely don't.
and I know I was like I feel like for me the energy of the work, I feel like I came more into myself in a way that I felt like a sense of more acceptability, even though I was health discriminated against in the city I lived in at the time. And those are interesting stories. I was like, oh boy. And I was like, that's a real thing. But I feel like now I'd like to believe that people are opening up to even people that weren't intuitive or like, oh, I'm questioning it or feeling more, coming back. I'm really big into health advocacy. Like, who are you? Because as a professional medical intuitive, when I've helped people and they've challenged the system, two people literally almost died. And they said, you're not listening. I'm pushing. And they said, holy shit, you're right. And they literally came back and thanked me. And I was like, I didn't do anything. They were like, but you told me to trust my intuition and I didn't want to. And I did. And then, yeah, then things went from like could have been really bad. And I'm like, that's the future I feel like of healing medicine is like, where are we as our own advocates to heal ourselves and to reach out when we need to? Not like I feel like everybody goes, I know in America, everybody goes to the doctor like Tic Tacs, pop in their
Yeah.
pills. The lines at the pharmacies when I walk through Costco, I question that. I look and I go, wow, those lines are so long. There's so many people that need something. And what I go back to is I'm not minimizing some serious health concerns. I just feel like people don't know love and they don't know a connection to their body. So they reach
Absolutely.
outward unconsciously. And
Hmm.
I know like when my kid is sick, my kids are never sick, by the way, it's very rare. But when they are and they're struggling with a fever, and I just look at them, I really tune in and I just say, you know what, your body is so intelligent.
Yeah.
It knows how to heal. And I go, my gosh, if we can just tell children that, like if I heard that when I was younger, it would help me out a lot. Instead of I got the fear of like, you're gonna die, something's wrong. And
Yeah.
I have to laugh about it now because it's just where people were. But like my kid's struggling with being sick or something, and I'm looking and tuning and I'm like, they're okay. They're okay. But it's uncomfortable not to feel good, but your body is so intelligent. And what is
Hmm.
it doing? And I do everything very natural, but I left the medical system like 30 years ago because I
There
was
you go.
medically abused. So I have a whole other, when you go through abuse, you're like, I'm never going there again. And what it's taught me is that you actually don't really need a medical system as much as people think they do. You really
No,
don't.
no. That
Talk
is one of
about
the biggest
that.
things.
That's a big one. People don't want to talk about that.
No, and I say this to my kids because where we
Yeah.
live in London, Ontario, Canada, it's right. We unfortunately is like walking distance to the hospital that I was terminated from, and um, just real life happening around. Okay, so where I was terminated from is this huge teaching hospital, and they're always adding additions to it. And I say to my children, if we're becoming so advanced in medicine, in health, in helping people, do you think the hospital should be getting bigger or smaller? Right. And this is over the years,
Mm,
and they're like, well, smaller. It's like, well, yes. Like, why do they keep adding, bigger hospitals? They need more space, need more of this, more staff, more everything. Right. They're always saying, we don't have enough, don't have enough. If we're so advanced in what we do, in our knowledge and what we're doing, why are so many people still getting so sick and chronic illnesses? Why do we need so much more? It just doesn't make any sense. Thank goodness for the medical system in actual traumas, in actual emergencies. That is what they're best for. That is what they're great at. Anything else beyond that, you can find better care anywhere else. But it comes back to, again, we've outsourced our trust. We live busy lives. We don't have time to research, to learn, to come inward, all those uncomfortable things. It's
mm,
just tell me what to do. What is the fix for this? What do I need to take? Instead of learning how to be uncomfortable for that time to allow your body to move through it. And I think throughout the years, we've learned how to numb ourselves in so many different ways, including
yes.
pain, including feeling ourselves, and whatever it might be, any discomforts. We're like, how do we move through it as fast as possible instead of actually sitting in it and being like, this sucks, it's uncomfortable, but as you said, but thank you, body, for taking care of
Yeah.
me. Thank you, body, for knowing how to heal. Thank you, body, for knowing how to adapt in all these situations. I might not know what happened, but you do. And thank you
Yeah.
for taking care of me. And those are just the way you speak to your son, that's how I speak to my children too. Like, your body will heal. It knows
Yeah.
what to do. It's smarter than we will ever be.
Yes.
It's trust its innate ancient wisdom that
Yeah.
it knows how to heal and how to adapt.
And
Hmm.
you remind me when you say that the big buzzword these days is the nervous system, right? I'm
Yeah.
regulated, I'm dysregulated. And even though I came from that study many years ago, somatic psychology, and I'm still trying to figure it out, to be honest. I feel like it's an ongoing journey, but I feel like when you say that, it reminds me of the nervous system, how it's its own thing. It's its own entity. And it either it heals or it doesn't heal with us. And I think when people are in high levels of stress, trapped in depression and anxiety, that means your nervous system is working against you on some level. I mean, for you, but against you. But it's also like coming back to like, even looking at our children, like I hear way too many children talking about anxiety. I'm like, my kids don't even know what that word means. And it's like
Yeah.
that's certain someone's like, no. And I'm like, well, if you have that word or they know what that is, where did they get that from? Right. And it's like we don't think about that. People, I think they adultize, I'm making up a word, children. like they have to have it figured out at 10 years old. You're like, they're 10 years old. No, it's true. I see this a lot in the world. People with children, like wanting them to have it all figured out. And everything does come back to our children. It's like the birth, right? And then coming into this world, it's like I'm thinking, how am I raising a sovereign, empathic, compassionate, kind human that wants to be a part of creating a new world energy, really? That's not trapped by the violence or the disconnect. And I do feel like, and I know you get it too, is like the more I'm seeing it so much more, the more disconnected we are from our bodies, the more people are just floating around, just doing whatever people are telling them to do and not
Yeah.
questioning anything. And the world is going to keep dynamically really shifting. And even other energy beings are already integrating here. That's a whole other conversation. But the human body, the being is just constantly in a huge expanded change as we see. So I want to, one last thing before we come to an end, and I want to hear what you think. Over the past years, the birthing trend is induction. Is there another trend that I'm missing right now besides being inducing everybody? Because everybody has a freaking emergency to be induced. Is there any other trends that you see happening right now?
Oh, induction is definitely one. The stretch and sweeps, the horrendous stretch and sweeps that they do, they're horrific. The C sections are continuing to still
Really?
go
Okay.
up. Yeah. But um, I've been removed from that space for a while, so I might not be the best person to really like watch the trends. I'm more like
Yeah.
focused on how do we educate more people on this path. So I just know that yes, inductions are out of control. You know what actually is as well is blood pressure and really pushing the ultrasounds in marketing, not marketing, but really pushing that.
It is
And I
marketing.
yeah, well, you're right. It is. That's probably
Yeah.
like Freudian slip. It was, yeah, like, and
Yeah.
what we have been noticing is a lot of consequences, meaning punishment. So because we're kind of more immersed in this space, and my dear friend that I was organizing the conference with, she's more in a role of attending births, and so we kind of share what she's seeing and other people like our traditional birth companions and their stories. And there's a time where just moms just want a little bit of information. Maybe, the trust is there, they want this, but it's like, okay, blood pressure maybe is a little high, or maybe this is a little change. And just for peace of mind, they just want a little information from the hospital. So they go in, but they're met with such disdain and pushback. Like, what do you mean
Mm,
you don't have any prenatal care? What do you mean you don't have an ultrasound? What do you mean you're doing all these things? Instead of just being like, we're coming to you in, full responsibility. We just want some information. We're taking, care of our baby and everything. And they're just met with such like restriction there. And I think that's kind of interesting. And instead of actually like looking at the family, the mother of like, okay, this is what you're going, this is what you need. Okay, let's work with this. There's so much pushback of like, oh, but you're choosing something outside of us. Like, how can
mm,
we punish you enough to put the fear in you to make you come back? And so CES is
yes.
a lot now. Now that threat of if you don't follow our rules, we're going to have CS after you. And that's been happening. Like CS is coming to these houses of these parents being like, you didn't get an ultrasound. You didn't have breastfeeding support. You didn't have, all the things. And thank goodness we're still in a place where CS writes off, like, obviously you have very caring, loving parents and family, and like you're capable. So we close the file, but we're seeing now the pushback is, if you're going to go outside of us, you're going to be punished for it.
Wow. And that's where it brings me back to that's why you don't go there to begin with.
Exactly. Well, and that's why the birth conference, and maybe we need a different name for the conference, like how can we invite more in? Because
Mm,
you can be equipped with this knowledge to, again, because you have to earn trust, you have to experience it, you have to
yes.
really like lean into it. And whatever decision, comes by, and a time and a place for everything, of course. But how do we, in more areas of our lives, take back
And
that trust?
I want to add to that
Yeah.
is it's okay to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
Like that's what women don't understand. Like you could be uncomfortable for many weeks and months until you're getting to wherever you're getting to. Uncomfortable doesn't mean you have no intuition. I think that we have this expectation of over positivity, that everything's just supposed to be whatever, but it's like real human experiences are going to shift back and forth, especially birthing in 2026, especially if you're going into a system. Like I just feel like that's a certain frequency you're going into, and you're inviting all these other energies in there, so that intervention, that intervening is just going to be a part of it. And I do feel like it's definitely built over time through experience and living and, our own inner mindset, our own psychology of like then coming back to, our own heart space, I'll say, the universal heart, our own beingness. Some can call it God. It's like, I mean, that's everything. And everything else just put goes into place. But it's like, I know this is a constant battle, and I love what you're doing with this conference. And I love that you shared the whole family piece in it, because I do feel like future energy is all about family connections and ways of raising consciousness, and even community, like even outside community, like pulling in all the energies around, people call soul families, right? Like not maybe biological. But I want to hear just finally, like, just any final words you can leave with somebody. Maybe they're doubting their own abilities and their own family energy, and share ways that people can find you, the conference, and just you, and whatever ways that is.
Yeah, I'll share a little story first leading into that. Was I remember when I was in the thick of it with my daughter, I experienced all the intensity in my back without any rest. And towards kind of the end when she was getting closer, I didn't realize how close she was, but she was. I thought, this happens to most women at that point where baby's about to come. They're like, I can't do it anymore. I feel like I'm going to
Mhm.
die. All the things that come out.
Yeah.
And and it was in that moment, I'm like, I don't know if I can keep going. And Billy Harrigan, who I hope you have a conversation with if you haven't yet, she took my hands and looked me right in the eyes. And she said, you are safe, you are strong, and you can do this just like
Mm.
every other woman before you. And it was something in that moment, like it sounds so simple, but it was so powerful. Just that reminder of like, every other woman before. We have done this. That's why we are here. That's why we are still life on this earth. Every other woman before. This is what we're meant to do and meant to experience, and we keep doing it. And so, baby girl came shortly after that, and it was such an incredible experience. The first thing I said to her was, "We did it," because I knew it
Mm.
wasn't just me. It wasn't just. It was we did it. And it was also that moment where I'm like, oh my gosh, if, when you run that marathon, you climb that summit, whatever it is that you've overcome, and all of a sudden that feeling you get of euphoria, like, oh my gosh, like we did it. And so that's the part of bringing the families together to experience that wholeness as well in those moments. And so that's just a little part of, for those, not sure if you can do it, not sure where you're at. It was that moment of every other woman before you. And so
Mm.
this is what we are meant to do. This is what we're designed to do. This is why we're here. And this is, the sacred work that we are blessed to be able to do, is carry life and bring life into this world. Like how incredible is that we get to be women to do that. And we should be able to experience that in all of its fullness if, we're able. So I'd love for people to join us. We had people from all over the states fly in last year. So the more people spread the word, reclaimingbirthconference.com. We are actually the first time ever expanding into Quebec, into Montreal. And we're going to see where this continues to go, because it's not just an event, it's a movement of, reclaiming birth, yes, but reclaiming the whole family. So you can find us at reclaimingbirthconference.com. And you can find me mostly on Instagram, is probably where I'm most active right now, at Kristen_Nagel.
Well, thank you so much for being here. There's so much amazing things that we all get to sit with and kind of really elevate what that looks like as parents or parents to be, and how we're raising and what we're bringing in, some new level of, you know, accountability, or even just purity in nature. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
Yes. And I want to thank you all for joining episode 234, January 2026, Reclaiming Your Divine Design, Home Birth, Homeschooling, and Health Sovereignty. Thank you for joining Spirit Baby Radio with your host, me, Kelly Meehan. Please join my community and stay in touch with monthly energy rants, Spirit Baby poetry, and get access to Spirit Baby 101 with tips and practices at my newsletter at newearthchildren.com. And join me on Instagram with lives at Spirit Baby Medium, and join the Mighty Networks, the Spirit Baby Collective membership, and Motherhood to Mediumship. Remember, you are the heart that holds communication, and it is your time to connect. Come share in the great shift of your mind and the true spirit of your heart with Spirit Baby Communication.